Do you know the total figure that you've been able to donate so far?
Yeah, it was almost 800,000 shillings, which is about $8,000 basically.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so generous too, because like your artwork was great, so you could have just made the rightfully so. Yeah, right. I guess like not under false pretenses, but you had every right as an artist to take the payment for that artwork. So
Yeah.
I think that's lovely. But I think that's such a cool use of the space. It's you can make something on it, you can give through it. People get great art. It's win-win-win-win. Like I think that's so cool.
Win-win all through.
Yeah. Welcome to Altcoins with Pictures. I'm your host, Fadye, and today's guest is Kiggs, a 3D artist from Kenya. We talked to Kiggs about how he got started, tips for other artists, how they could get started. We talk about contracts, why he doesn't like influencers, different blockchains. We talked to him about the scene in Africa and specifically in Kenya, and we discuss his support of mental health through his artwork. These are the stories of the people behind Web3. Please enjoy. Thanks, Kevin, for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Tell us a little bit about what you've been working on in NFTs.
Okay, so my name is Kevin, or Kiggs. I am a Kenyan 3D artist from Nairobi. I'm a generalist. I love to bounce between a lot of themes and styles, and just experiment with a lot of things, so to speak. My main voice is mostly in mental health, because that's what I'm a bit passionate about. Yeah, but I do jump between a lot of themes and experiments, just trying to find, just trying to have fun with my art.
Is your art just something you do on the side, or is it you're a professional artist? Like that's what you do for work?
Yeah, I'm actually a designer in real life. I'm a designer and also an animator and a motion designer. So they kind of mesh together, but I don't tend to do a lot of 3D for my main job. So 3D is more of my hobby, so to speak.
Yeah. So how do you explain to someone in real life what an NFT is?
Okay, that's an interesting question, because I always try to simplify it, to the very basics. I don't even talk about crypto. I just mentioned that it's a special coin that has, instead of having money attached to it, it has information attached to it. Yeah, just that. Because I always say that the blockchain thinks in coins. So an NFT is just a coin. I don't know how accurate that is, but I think it gets the word across.
I don't think it matters, right? Like it's about trying to explain it simply. And I think if you talk about crypto and Ethereum and Tezos and all this stuff, people just gloss over and aren't interested.
As soon as you say any kind of jargon, everybody just freezes.
Yeah. And it has such like bad connotations as well. So as soon as people hear crypto, they think it's a scam or it's just about money. Do you like have a description for Web3, like what that means?
Web3, I describe it as a second layer of the internet, which has a strong focus on ownership and decentralization. I don't think I've ever tried to explain it to a layman. I'm not sure how I do that. But yeah, just the basics of Web3 are ownership and decentralization.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, I don't think there is an accurate description of what it is. I think it's quite a broad topic.
It's more of a concept.
What do you think, like the average person, like a normie, has wrong about NFTs? Like, what do you think is the information out there?
Let's see. First of all, I think the biggest misinformation right now is probably that they hurt the environment, considering S2 came and it like cut off almost all the power consumption, and they also there are also other blockchains like Tezos and Polygon, which are just as big as, in my opinion, just as big as Ethereum. So yeah, number one, that it pollutes the environment. Number two, that it's only for, for cartoon animals and stuff like that. Because, when you look at someone like me, I'm an artist. I'm just a person who walked in, learned, and sold a few things, and now I think I'm doing a bit okay. Yeah, it's not just, you don't just come and make cartoon animals. You can make anything.
Yeah. How did you get started in the space?
Oh, okay. So I learned about it, I think, in February of 2021. I think that was about the time of the people sale, because I had seen it before. I had seen the first pack sale, the morphing cube. I've forgotten its name. That first pack sale that sold for, I think, 50K. I saw it and I was like, huh, cool. And then people, because I already knew people, when he sold, I was like, oh wow, this is a thing. So yeah, of course, I think most people usually brought to NFTs for the money, and then they stay for the community. And that's what happened to me. My first goal was, oh wow, I can make money with this thing. And when I joined, I actually didn't make a sale for. I joined. I think my first NFT was on March 10th. So just a variable lazy mint or an ERC 155, something like that. It didn't sell to date. I still have it in my wallet. So when I was trying to sell it, I was like, that's when I tried to not get into the community. So I was selling it, I was trying to post it on shield threads, all that. And then I discovered a few good collectors. I think OSF and Mando were big at the time, and Beanie before before we learned about him. So yeah, I just like getting active in the community and discovered there were so many artists who, there were so many artists doing their own thing. And personally, I really love art. So I love um, I love interacting with artists and just just asking people about like the inspirations and finding new things that people do in cool ways. So I think my first sale was in mid-April. It wasn't even a sale, it was a competition by OSF again. OSF, he had a competition to make art based on his punk. And I made a 3D animation like in a week. And yeah, it was really cool. So, I mean, he thought it was really cool. So he bought it for 0.5 ETH. And that was my first sale. I think I withdrew half of it and and bought a laptop. Then the other half, I just bought a lot of NFTs. I bought a lot of bad NFTs, not even good ones.
What was the first
So, yeah,
NFT that you bought?
my first NFT that I bought was actually, it was by a Ugandan, a lady called Laura Dembe or Vandem Lau. She At the time she made a page that was called Africa to the World, that was basically trying to support other African artists to come to the NFT space. So that was her project. It was just a bunch of cassettes that were based on different country flags. So I bought the Kenya one.
Right. Where was that, on OpenSea or somewhere else?
Yeah, it was on OpenSea.
You mentioned like different blockchains earlier, like Polygon, Tezos. Is all your work on ETH, or do you work on other blockchains as well?
Most of my work is on ETH, but I do have a few things on Tezos. Mostly experiments. I have a collection of, I think, 28 loops. So it's just called GM. And they're basically, I was trying to make a GM every day, but it's 3D and has this weird procedural thing to it. So they do kind of really interesting things. Yeah, so it's on Tezos on object.com. Yeah, I also,
how do you see the difference between the two? Are they just similar, or is it because Tezos is a little bit cheaper, you can do experiments there? Like, how do you view the different chains?
yeah. Personally, I think Ethereum is like the big leagues, Everybody there is just trying to make money stuff like that. But Tezos is a lot more free because I think because it's cheaper, everybody everybody who is on Tezos just loves collecting and loves collecting and loves creating. So there's this culture where people will just buy art if it's good. Not like Ethereum. Ethereum needs a lot of, I think, I don't know. Ethereum is a lot. Tezos is a lot simpler.
Yeah, I found like the most art like in quantity has been on Tezos for me buying it because it's so cheap. You just anytime you
Yeah,
see something you half like, it doesn't hurt. You might as well buy it. Whereas
yeah,
if I think it's so
exactly.
expensive, you've got to have in the back of your mind, if I really need to, can I sell this for maybe more money or get my money back? Whereas, yeah, I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
Tezos is just a bit more easier, a bit more simpler. Did you have any success? Like, did you even try like selling your artwork previous to NFTs?
Actually, no, it didn't. It didn't even occur to me that you can sell art as a 3D artist. It's so in Kenya, of course, we have most digital art isn't considered art at all. It's just there. If you hear like the stigma that even photographers go through, it's quite a lot. You have to get yourself a very big name somehow before you're able to sell digital art.
Is
Yeah,
art
but
like where you are? Is art does it have a big scene in general, and it's just digital art that's frowned upon, or just art isn't that well supported?
art is supported to some extent. Yeah, mostly when in Kenya, when you think of an artist, I mean, when you mention an artist, most people think a painter. Actually, it's just always a painter.
Yeah.
I mean, painters are the ones who get like the most attention and stuff.
Have you seen? So you're in Nairobi. Have you seen any like digital or like NFT galleries popping up at all? Is that a thing yet?
Um, okay, I'm part of the Kenyan NFT community. It's called the Kenyan NFT Club or Bogi NFT. Bogi just means club or group of NFT people. So we are the ones who try to spearhead that, who try to spearhead the NFT discussion. So we've held galleries, we've held talks, we've held conventions, all that. Yeah, we're a group of I think now we're almost 200 people.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So most of your work's in 3D. When you look at like, I guess just to categorize in profile picture projects, why do you think it's like 2D ones that are the most prominent, not 3D?
Um, I think uh, I think today is just easier to. It's not easier to do. It's easier to make a profile picture. Sort of, because 3D has to be like you really need to know what you're doing to be able to make a 3D project that looks good. But for a 2D project, it's very easy to make it look good, and it's very easy to just have it on as a profile picture. Yeah.
You recently did the artwork for, what is it, Futuristic Farm Friends. What did you learn in that process, making that artwork?
FFM was really fun. It was a really fun project for me because when I went in, I basically didn't know anything about how to make a 3D project. I didn't know anything about metadata, about randomization, about just anything. So everything I was learning on the go. All I just knew was how to design good characters. So yeah, everything was learning on the go. So I think halfway through I discovered this software which allows you to randomize NFTs in 3D, and that's why it just clicked for me. I started making I just started making everything with and just fitting everything together with like a jigsaw puzzle, so to speak. It was a lot of fun to do, and I think by the time I was done, I had almost how many? I had almost 900 billion possible combinations.
Wow.
Yeah,
Damn.
if not more. I'm not sure if there are more.
How do you start to do like quality control on like the results of that? Obviously you can't search through billions of iterations, so how do you like know that when it does pop something up that it's going to work together?
Oh, no, that's a lot of, it's a lot of testing, a lot of, I think just my own generations, my own suite, my own laptop itself probably has like 3 or more FFF collections inside of it. Just from, you set everything to like a rarity of 1, and then you randomize and put out like 1,000 combinations, and then go through like each of them trying to find any any issues. But when I was designing them, I also made sure that I had like mental guides of where something shouldn't pass, like where the shoes shouldn't pass or where the trousers shouldn't pass, things like that.
Right.
So yeah, it was a very closed and intimate process.
How long did it take you to do that?
I started in March, and then we launched in September.
Wow.
So that's almost 6 months. But I think most of the work was done in April and May, and then afterwards was just quality control and final touches.
With that, like I know it wasn't like hugely successful for you for the effort you put into it, but is it worth like holding that off to, like the bull run comes back in 2 or 3 years time? Or do you think it's worth trying it, and if it's not successful you just move on to the next thing? Or what's your thoughts?
That's an interesting question. I think, well, I don't want to leave the project, just like that.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also not 100% sure what you can, what value you can add for something that was like completely free and didn't get us anything. So I think it's better just have a mix of the two, to be there to try and do as much as you can, but also hope that things get better in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like the key part, well, not key part, but an integral part of having success in this space is like marketing, and that I think that works for art as well. Like how do you go about for your own personal stuff? How do you go about marketing your artwork?
That's a good question. Honestly, I have a lot of followers just from the amount of interaction I do. It's not a lot. It's an okay amount. Yeah, most of the time I just sit down and try and make like the most jaw-dropping promo video that you can. and then I'll try and share it with all my closed groups, things like the Kenyan NFT community, the African NFT community, and just other friends. I think I've even shared with you some of my promos that I was doing a while back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also not very good at marketing in the like traditional NFT marketing, because I don't think it really works for artists. You just have to market yourself, put yourself out there.
Yeah, it's like you're learning a completely different skill, and it's not easy by any means. Even though it's a small space, you really are fighting for attention. I think like what would your advice be for like someone else, they've just got into creating their own NFT art, and they're, been an artist for say 10 years. How do they start getting into the space? How do they get some sales?
That's a good question. I think for me, my biggest advice is always just put yourself out there and learn as much as you can. Because the more you know, the more you have a better chance of actually penetrating the market. If you just sit back and be like, okay, let me put this NFT and hope that it sells, you won't be able to sell. But if you are hungry for information and you'll interact with people, you will learn more, you'll find a few small tricks that you can do. Yeah, so that would be my advice. Put yourself out there and keep learning, keep trying to learn. Stay hungry.
Where would you start? Like, what blockchain? Does it matter?
If you okay, personally, I think my favorite blockchain of all of them is Tezos. So I'd probably recommend someone start with Tezos.
Yeah.
But if you can't with Ethereum, it's, you can just try. Yeah, though I'd recommend Tezos actually.
Do you think since coming into Web3, your art has like gotten better and better from that?
Yeah, as it actually has. I get a lot of inspiration from people. You just be meeting artists out here who have done things that you cannot even possibly fathom, or just, yeah, it has gotten a lot better. I just the amount of inspiration in the space is really amazing.
Where do you go, like social media wise? Is it all on Twitter? Is there anywhere else that you use?
Yeah, Twitter is, I think, my main social media. Before NFTs, I used to be active on Instagram. So Instagram is where most of the people who I like, my close networks, Kenyans and just other few artists. Instagram is where most of them are. So I usually just share recaps of stuff there. But yeah, Twitter is, I think, my main social media. Right now, I'm not very active on Twitter because I'm trying to focus on other things. But I of course leave one or two shit posts around.
Yeah. So is it just like you're just trying to stay active a little bit on Twitter?
Yeah, you're just trying to stay active and just seeing what people are doing and having fun.
Do you find it like hard? Is it you've got more pressing things in real life going on, or is it like because it's the bear market, it's quite boring at the moment?
I don't think NFT is ever boring for me because for me, I'm on the artist side. I'm not on the project side. Yeah, it's just things that are happening in real life for me that are, I'm trying to focus more on those than on NFTs.
Would you say like through Africa, Kenya is the heart of NFTs? Like, is there any competition amongst other countries? Like, or is it quite communal and supportive? Have you found that, or is it you've mainly only had a part in the Kenyan community?
Yeah, Africa, I think right now is very communal and supportive. The three epicenters of NFTs, I'd say, are Kenya, Nigeria, and Senegal. Yeah, Kenya, Nigeria, and Senegal. Senegal is mostly because of Linda Dunya. She managed to have a really big convention there that just brought a lot of people and put them on the map. And then Nigeria has like almost half of African artists are from Nigeria.
Right.
And yeah, and then Kenya is also coming in strong. But yeah, there are a lot of countries that are in the African, that are in the space. You have Uganda, as I had said before, Laura. You have South Africa. You have Zimbabwe. Yeah, I know a lot of people. Egypt, Central African Republic. Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's like the remarkable thing about NFTs, Web3, is you can go on Twitter, you can be talking to someone on the other side of the world and you don't even realize it if it's not even in their bio. I think it's unlocked a lot of things. It's don't get me wrong, it's still very like Americanized and America centric, but it does seem like there's more opportunities for whoever wants to be part of it.
Yeah, that's what I love most about NFTs. Anybody can just you can just join and connect with people out of the blue. Actually, I think I had gone almost 2 months before I met a Kenyan in the NFT space.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, from I think March to May. The first Kenyan I think I met was Young Kevat. And I was like, "Oh, you're Kenyan?" He's like, "Yeah, well, I'm Kenyan." It was so funny.
Yeah.
And I don't think he had also met another Kenyan.
Yeah, I think it's great. There's been a bit of a trend just in the last week or so, a bit of an engagement farming thing, but of Australian Twitter blowing up for the first time. And I'm seeing on my timeline people that I had no idea lived in my country, let alone my city. It's just
Oh,
it's just unaware
that's
of these
cool.
things. Have you went to any, has there been any like conferences or like NFT or even just crypto ones in Kenya that you've attended to, like IRL events?
Yeah. As I said, I'm part of the Kenyan NFT community. So we do organize a lot of lot of what? Conventions, talks, exhibitions, all that. And then we have also partnered with a few other crypto entities, from things like Polygon, the blockchain, and Harmony, to groups like what? And there are a lot. I can't remember them. I can't remember them off the top of my head. But we have had quite a few quite a few talks and conventions. I actually wanted to try and go for NFT NYC this year, but 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 I had a small visa issue,
Okay.
so I wasn't able to go.
Yeah, it seems like it's definitely the central place to go at the moment. But it seems like no one necessarily goes to the conference. They just go to the different events that are being held at the
Yeah,
same time.
yeah, NYC basically just blows up during that time.
Yeah, it just
I
seems
mean,
like
I don't
people.
think I was also going for the conference. I was going for the African NFT exhibition that was happening.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because I think my art had been selected, one of the faces.
Oh, cool. Um, Speaking of which, do you want to talk about your Faces project?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Faces is still my favorite project that I did, just because of how, you know, it just it was just everything for me. It it allowed me to express myself, to get community, to to do something for the actual community here in Kenya. It was just it was just everything. So how do I even explain Faces? Basically, the whole concept was that it it was a bunch of 3D portraits that tried to personify mental health aspects. So from disorders to coping mechanisms to bad factors and goals of treatment. And that was the whole idea. So it was released in an episodic way. So part one was the disorders, the phases, and then part two was the coping mechanisms called helpers. And then part three was the bad factors called felons. And then part four was the goals of treatment called assets. So yeah, it went on from July last year, July 2021 to December. And it was just the most fun that I've ever had in my entire life. The most fulfilling thing I've ever done.
Wow. What gave you that idea? Is it just something you just wanted to give back?
Yeah, I had actually been sitting on that idea for I think 3 or 4 years before that. I just wanted to do something that had something to do with faces, like heads that represent mental health issues. I think my first idea was just to have like one head that is very reflective and then have the words and names all around it. But I was like, I could make it something bigger. Each of them could be an intimate, self-contained story, so to speak, like an episode or a scene.
So, what was the deal with that? You gave a certain percentage of profits to the corresponding, what mental health foundation or something?
Yeah. So I think before Faces, I had already done another artwork that was based on a mental health issue, and from that artwork, I had also donated a bit. So I sat down and I thought I could make this bigger. Instead of just donating to that one, I donated to one organization. So I thought instead of donating it to just that one organization, how about I get one for each artwork, because each artwork was aimed to be a bunch of editions. Yeah, so and I also had to look for organizations that were relevant to each disorder, because the first drop that I did was the phases. They were based on disorders. There was depression, anxiety, trauma, and so on. So I had to sit down and look for organizations that actually help with each of those issues. So if you look at like depression, the donations go to Befrienders. Befrienders it's a suicide helpline, a free suicide helpline in Kenya. Anxiety was going to Mental 360, which was it's a free CBT clinic. So I just arranged them such that each disorder would donate to an organization that deals with that disorder in Kenya.
Do you know the total figure that you've been able to donate so far?
Yeah, actually, I think I had to now put them in an Excel file. It was almost 800,000 shillings, which is about $8,000 basically.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so generous too, because like your artwork was great, so you could have just made rightfully so. Yeah, right. I guess like not under false pretenses, but you had every right as an artist to take the payment for that artwork. So
yeah.
I think that's lovely. But I think that's such a cool use of the space. It's you can make something on it, you can give through it, people get great art. It's win 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 win. Like I think that's so cool.
Win-win all through.
Yeah. So with that though, you've got two contracts, like a version 2. What was the reasoning with that?
Oh, the original release of Faces, it was on OSS, on the OpenSea shared storefront. And OpenSea it was just impossible to find them on the blockchain. I think Liberation has each of them has just a random token ID. So I just didn't like how it looked, and it just felt like a bad look. I couldn't even set up things like bots on Discord to look back to check the tokens and things like that. Yeah, so I sat down and I just thought it would be more feature proof to put on a dedicated contract.
So if you're launching another project on OpenSea, how do you go about doing it on your own contract these days?
Oh, I use Manifold. I'm sure you know Manifold is amazing. I mean, Richard is a god. They just the amount of tools that they give you, from creating your own contract to setting your own ASCII art, to creating drops and airdrops and free claims and even websites. I mean, you can actually create like I don't know if it's a claiming website, just a simple claiming website it's just a lot of stuff that you can do. And then everything is hosted on Arweave, so it's permanently immutable.
Does that cost you anything going through Manifold?
No, it only just costs you gas. That's the funny part.
That's the crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's crazy. So cool. I always found that like last year, I think before sort of Manifold launched, it was always such a shame to find like great stuff on OpenSea, and then you look at it and it's a shared contract, and I don't know if it's hugely important yet, but I think down the road it's going to be massive. That like I bought things from I think Known Origin or something like that, and it's just so hard to just search it. It's like lost. But they're the teething issues, I guess, with the new technology.
Yeah, I think the space has moved forward so quickly from when we started. I mean, there are things in March that were ubiquitous and now are so obsolete. Like using Rarible. When I joined the NFT space, Rarible was still the main it was still the main marketplace, and then it just faded into obscurity.
Yeah, it's brutal industry. You can
It's
make some
brutal.
money, but yeah, it's crazy just how quickly that feels like 5 years ago that you could use Rarible, but it was
Yeah,
like
it
just
does.
last year. I remember using OpenSea to start off with. It was like using, the first year that eBay came out. It was so basic and it was so hard to find
So
anything, and whether it was
junky.
legitimate or, you know, it's crazy. Um, I guess like, you don't know what you didn't know when you started, but what's some things that you wish you did know when you first got into NFTs?
Um, I, I wish I knew more about tokenomics when I started, because I think when I started, I didn't. When I joined the NFT space, I was basically green to the whole essence of collections and everything. So my first collection, I literally just took all the artworks that I've done, I think, over the last year, and just dumped them on OpenSea. And I think, I mean, if I had a bigger community back then, that would probably have been a very bad look, and I probably would have built more efficiently if I knew what I knew now.
So you mean like just slowly bringing out a supply of your work, not just dumping it
Yeah,
straight away?
yeah, exactly, and also learning to market as opposed to like as opposed to minting, learning to put it out there.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on one of one art editions? Like, what's your thought process? How do you do that well? Like, how do you do that effectively?
Um, I don't think I have any additional artworks on any besides faces. I don't have any other additional artworks. So I think additional artworks are good. They're good for either lowering like your access, you know, the the price to access your art, or to get a bit more to expand your collector base. And one of ones are ideally supposed to be the real deal. You get you sorry, yeah, they're the real value. And then also you have, I think also collections should be put in that, because you'll find most artists will create a collection, and each artwork sort of feels like a variation of all the others. They're not 100% unique. They have a, you know, and I think that's also something that should be talked about, because it means basically that the value of the art is both the collection and the art itself, and it might either diminish or enhance the value depending on how you do it. But it's something that you also need to keep in mind if you're making something that's things that are extremely similar to each other. You have to keep in mind that you have to either push them as a whole or enhance them individually for them to be able to stand out.
Yeah, seems like the only one that I've seen that does collections at least a tiny bit well is maybe Foundation, where you can like section it off and it's a bit clear that this belongs to this series.
Yeah, that's true.
What's your thoughts on sites like what's what's the pinnacle of art to what site? It's obviously not OpenSea or
Um, I'd say the pinnacle of art for me is by the way, I used to hate Foundation until they introduced their contracts and introduced lowered the royalties. They just made everything a lot easier. So I think the best art sites right now are Foundation, obviously Super Rare, and Manifold. Manifold isn't an art site, but it is where ideally you should, if you have your own brand, that's where you should be making your art. That's where you should be putting your stuff.
right.
Yeah. So for general artists, I'd say Manifold and Manifold and Foundation, because they're basically the exact same thing. They both focus on provenance. They allow you to create your own contracts and and put your art at its highest quality.
I think Foundation gives you some kind of searchability as well, like discoverability. I think if you go on
Yeah.
OpenSea, it's good luck to anyone ever finding it unless you lead them to it through Twitter
Yeah.
or Instagram. It could be the most amazing art. No one's going to find it on OpenSea. It's just too big. Who's some of your favorite follows in the space?
My favorite follows. Most of them are, I mean, some of them I carried over from my Instagram. People like Joriba, Bakos Hill, who else? 6 and 5, Omar Oki Studios. I have a long list. I mean, those were artists. And then for collectors, I think my favorite collectors in the space are obviously OSF, Barat, Kribarat. It used to be 888 and then discovered he's a serious rug artist.
Yes. That's the downside to anonymity is people can look amazing for
you can
a while.
You can just discover people for their true selves in an instant. Yeah. And I think in general, who else can I shout out? I think Claire Maguire, she's one of my favorite people. I don't know if you know her.
No, I don't think so, no.
Yeah, she's a really fun person. She's a community builder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all. I can keep naming for days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. I guess slightly different, but like, who do you like look up to in the space that seems to do everything really well? Like their art is amazing, their marketing's amazing, they seem to be approachable, and who's doing like every little facet well?
Personally, I love Joriba's approach to art, because he's one of these artists who makes art every day. And he basically, he's more of less words, more the image talking for itself.
Yeah.
So his art will always be just one word, the name of the art, the name of the artwork, and the artwork itself. And if he's posting it on a foundation, it's just the link. And because his art speaks for him, it works for him very well. I've actually bought one of his artworks as well. There was a time he was being collected by Park publicly. Park himself, he was just buying up all of his artworks for $1 each.
Wow.
He actually outbid me once, because I think I had put in a bid of 0.15, and then Park comes in $1. Okay, fine.
Yeah. That's the downside to whales getting involved, is sometimes it's hard to buy anything. It's hard to afford anything.
At least he stopped. He left some for the rest of us.
Do you see anyone like, I'm sure there's a million people, but anyone that you think is like about to blow up in popularity as an artist, that, you know, the best kept secret sort of thing?
Best kept secrets. It's funny, if you just look at my wallet, I don't know if this counts as bag shilling, but it
depends if you sell.
I have a proven track record of doing that, of buying from artists and then they get a little blow up a bit later. But that mostly happens on Tezos. So I'd say, well, Kenyan, there's Ngiki Canvas body art. They're a nude photography project. And then who else? Oh, one of my favorite artists, Bakos Hill. He's been underground for such a long time, and I'm sure he'll keep getting underground, but when he blows up, that's going to be a big explosion.
Yeah. Yes, some people it's just a matter of time. People
it's just a matter of time, because they're literally they're made for it.
Yeah. Let's go something a bit not potentially not as nice. Do you have any like hot takes about the space? Something that annoys you, something that's a bit controversial?
Hot takes. Let's see. Obviously, I don't think it's a hot take, but just the amount of commercialization in the space sometimes just gets completely annoying. You know, where every influencer, they'll say they don't have a price tag, but they really do. They just have a secret price tag. You just have to email them. with the right way. And it just gets so overwhelming at some point. Because when we were trying to launch FFF, that's what was happening. You're trying to reach out to someone and they're like, unless and then they give you a list of really strict requirements, and it's like you just have followers. It's not you don't even have a good engagement ratio. This is just an arbitrary number. So yeah, it does get overwhelming at some point. And a hot take. I don't think decentralization is the best way for NFTs, because when you give, I mean, decentralization works when the protocol is able to lead something like Ethereum or just mining in general. Decentralization works for mining because the protocol is in charge. But for NFTs, decentralization doesn't work because there's no protocol that takes charge.
Do you mean like
So
like a project shouldn't be decentralized?
No, not a project, more like the actual the application layer, marketplaces and just general market, like how the market works. There needs to be a bit of a system. Though of course I wouldn't want it to be controlled, controlled. Just something fail safes.
Yeah, I think that
it's something that we can argue about.
Yeah, it's a hard balance to get right. You're either completely decentralized and no one's responsible, no one's driving new things. It's just it runs itself into the ground. But then if it is centralized, it can become a monopoly and then it controls everything. So
yeah, it can.
Yeah. I think decentralization maybe it's like a good ideal, but it doesn't exist in the real world.
Yeah, it doesn't exist and it's not practical.
Yeah, because I think like if you thought of like a decentralized government, it would be crazy. Nothing would get done.
Yeah.
No one would be building roads. There'd be no water. It would be crazy. What's your like tips? Like, say you're an artist who's following you on Instagram but hasn't made the leap to NFTs. Like, where do you start? Like, someone's keen to get into NFTs, but they're just confused. Like, where's the starting point?
I think the best thing to do is always just to start learning about the basics of what a blockchain is, what crypto is, so you have a good foundation. That's actually why I started, because when I started, I knew what a blockchain was, I knew what crypto was, but I didn't know what NFTs were. So when I learned about NFTs, I was like, oh, that's it. It made it a lot easier. So yeah, I would recommend just try and get the most basic knowledge. And then the second thing to do is just get into the community. Find someone who does NFTs maybe locally, or someone that you might know, and just bug them with all questions about who to follow and all that. Just I don't think there's anybody who would get angry if you ask them a question about how to get into the community.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like the amount of people that you can DM, you can comment on a Twitter page, maybe an Instagram, get into a Discord. Yeah, I've found most people are more than willing to help. And the worst you're going to get is someone say, I'm not going to help you. And you just move on.
Yeah.
Just sort of a final question. What do you hope for the future of NFTs? What would you love to see in the future?
For the future, obviously, I'd say less commercialization. I don't know how that can happen, but can we just get rid of all the influencers kindly? They're annoying. And I do hope that the market manages to fragment itself well, because I think right now the market is so small that everybody seems to jump from one thing to the other. So when art was the thing, everybody was buying art. When PFPs became the thing, everybody was buying PFPs. There's very little division of interests. Like there's no there are very few people who actually say, I'm buying art, I'm buying PFPs, I'm buying utility projects. there are a few, those tend to be the opinion leaders, and then the mass market just tends to, jump from one side to the other. So I'd really love for the market to fragment itself, nice to people who like art to buy art, people who buy PFPs to buy PFPs. And, there just to be some sort of balance.
Yeah, I think that
I
just
think
takes
that's
more
my main
people
one.
coming in.
Yeah, it just does take more people coming in.
Yeah. That's everything from me, man. I really appreciate your time. Hopefully you can catch up on some sleep from getting up so early. And I hope you're feeling a bit better.
Oh, no. Actually, I need to start going to work.
Right. Okay. Well, I hope you have a great day, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hope you too. Thank you
All
for
right.
having me.
No worries. All right. See ya. Thank you for watching Altcoins with Pictures. That was Kiggs. Please give him a follow on Twitter. Go check out his artwork. Support someone who's a great asset to the space. Thanks again. See you out there in Web3. Cheers.